Imagine a version of the Bible so different, so expansive, that it claims Jesus was not just a man, but a being of cosmic fire whose very presence could shake the foundations of reality. What if the serene, blue-eyed figure we've seen in paintings since childhood is only half the story? And what if the other half was deliberately hidden away for over 1,700 years, surviving only in the remote mountains of Ethiopia? This isn't the plot of a new religious thriller. This is a real historical mystery. And it connects an ancient manuscript, a lost book quoted by the apostles, and a $100 million Hollywood epic from Mel Gibson that promises to be an acid trip through heaven and hell. The director of The Passion of the Christ claims the resurrection wasn't a quiet miracle, it was a cosmic event. But here's the question that changes everything. Did Mel Gibson find his vision for this film in the ancient, forbidden texts of the Ethiopian Bible? Welcome. Today we are going to open the pages of history that have been sealed for centuries. We're going to ask the hard questions. Why does the Ethiopian Bible have 81 books while yours has only 66? Who decided to remove texts like the Book of Enoch? And most importantly, what did they tell us about Jesus that the Western Church didn't want you to know? If you are ready to question the narrative you've been handed, to look beyond the surface and explore the dimensions of faith that most people are too afraid to even speak of, then you are in the right place. Subscribe to the channel because the connections we are about to reveal will absolutely shake your mind. Let's begin. The question of the missing books. Let's start with a simple question that has a very complicated answer. Is the Bible you read the complete story? Most of us grew up with a specific understanding. In the Protestant tradition, you have 66 books. In the Catholic tradition, it's 73. We are taught that this is the finalized, closed canon of Scripture. Nothing added, nothing removed. It feels solid, definitive. But if you travel 2,000 miles east of Jerusalem, to the highlands of Ethiopia, that solidity crumbles. The Bible there, used by the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, contains 81 books. Some ancient traditions even suggest the number reaches as high as 88. That isn't just a minor difference. That is an entire library of additional texts, ancient writings that simply do not exist in your average Western Bible. This leads us to our first major question. If these books were good enough for one of the oldest Christian traditions on earth, why were they removed from ours? The monastery in the sky. To understand how these texts survived, we have to look at geography and dedication. While Europe was plunged into the chaos of the Dark Ages with empires crumbling, wars raging, and libraries burning, a different story was unfolding in Ethiopia. In the mountains of the Tigray region, perched on cliffs that are nearly impossible to reach, monks were quietly doing the opposite of losing knowledge. They were preserving it. These monasteries became arcs of ancient thought. They were so remote that when Islamic expansions swept through North Africa and the Middle East after the 7th century, Ethiopia became isolated. But that isolation was its salvation. In these mountain fortresses, monks copied ancient texts by hand. We aren't talking about a quick photocopy. Each manuscript took months, sometimes years, to complete. By the dim light of oil lamps, using homemade bamboo pens and ink made from soot and crushed leaves, they carefully transcribed every letter. This was a sacred duty passed down from generation to generation. This is how we ended up with treasures like the Garima Gospels. For centuries, Western scholars believe these manuscripts dated back to around 1100 AD, but when modern radiocarbon tests were finally permitted on a small fragment, the results shocked the world. They dated the Garima Gospels to between 330 AD and 650 AD. Think about that. These books were hidden in a monastery in Ethiopia while the Roman Empire was still falling. They are among the oldest, most complete Christian manuscripts in existence. They are physical proof that the texts preserved in Ethiopia aren't later additions, they are the original layers of the faith. So the question shifts, what exactly is in these extra books that made them so dangerous that the rest of the world felt the need to cast them aside? The cosmic Christ. If you open a standard Western Bible, the image of Jesus is one of a gentle shepherding. He is a teacher, a healer, a sacrifice. Renaissance art cemented this. A man with soft eyes, a calm demeanor, a comforting presence. Now, open the Book of Enoch or the Ascension of Isaiah as preserved in Ethiopia. The description is startlingly different. Here, Christ is depicted not merely as a kindly teacher, but as a being of tremendous cosmic power. This is not a soft light. This is a burning, divine radiance. The text describes his hair as white as wool, shining like sunlight reflected on snow. His eyes are like a flame of fire, burning with a depth and power that penetrates reality itself. His face is described as so radiant that it shines brighter than 1,000 suns. This is a being whose presence doesn't just comfort, it commands, it silences angels. It shakes the very structure of creation. This leads us to a chilling question. If the original Christ was described as a cosmic figure of fire and light, who changed the story to the gentle shepherd we see today? The Book of Enoch connection. Here is where the mystery deepens into a full-blown historical conspiracy. One of the most important of these lost texts is the Book of Enoch. Now, this isn't just some obscure writing. It was widely known and quoted by early church fathers like Justin Martyr, Irenaeus, and Tertullian. More importantly, it is quoted directly in the New Testament. The Epistle of Jude, verse 14 to 15, quotes Enoch almost verbatim. Look at the description in the Book of Enoch, chapter 46. It speaks of a figure called the Son of Man, whose head was white as wool, and whose face was full of grace and power. Now, jump to the Book of Revelation, chapter 1. Here, John describes Jesus with hair white as wool and eyes as a flame of fire. His feet are like burnished bronze, and his voice is like the roar of many waters. The similarity is so striking that it's impossible to call it a coincidence. The early Christians knew Enoch. They saw Jesus in its pages, yet by the 4th century, something changed. The Book of Enoch was systematically removed from the canon. The Council of Laodicea in 363 AD was one of the key moments where these texts were discredited and pushed out. Which brings us to the most uncomfortable question of all. Why? If it was good enough for the apostles, why did the 4th century church want it gone? The danger of the inner light. The answer might be more political than theological. The Book of Enoch and other similar texts didn't just talk about angels and monsters. They talked about the nature of humanity. They presented the idea that humans are not merely dust and clay, but children of light. They suggested that a divine spark exists within every individual. The kingdom of God wasn't just a far-off place in the sky. It was something to be found within. If salvation is an external gift granted only through a specific institution, that institution holds the keys to power. But if salvation is an inner awakening, a realization that you already carry a piece of the divine, then the power shifts away from the institution and back to the individual. In one of the Ethiopian texts, you find the phrase repeated, "You are not dust, but light." This was a radical idea. If divinity already exists within you, why do you need a mediator for every single step? If the kingdom is within, why is the building so important? These ideas threatened the hierarchical structure that was solidifying as Christianity merged with the Roman Empire. To maintain control, the teachings of direct, personal, cosmic connection had to be sidelined. Mel Gibson's acid trip. This brings us to the present day and to a name you know well, Mel Gibson. In 2004, he shocked the world with The Passion of the Christ. It was violent, intense, and real. But for Gibson, that film was only half the story. He has stated repeatedly that the real story, the resurrection, has never been properly told. In a now famous interview on the Joe Rogan podcast, Gibson dropped a bombshell. He said he was working on a sequel, The Resurrection of the Christ, and that one of the scripts he wrote was so ambitious, he jokingly described it as an acid trip. He explained that to tell this story properly, you can't just stay on Earth. You have to go to the places movies don't go. You have to go to hell. You have to go to other dimensions. He stated that the film would begin not at the crucifixion, but with the fall of the angels. This project is now slated for a 2-part release in 2027. Part 1 hits theaters on Good Friday, March 26th, and Part 2 on Ascension Day, May 6th. With a budget reportedly north of $100 million and filming set to begin at Rome's renowned Cinecittà Studios, this is one of the most ambitious religious films ever conceived. But here is the connection that should send chills down your spine. What Mel Gibson is describing, a story that moves between levels of heaven, that depicts Christ descending through different realities, that deals with fallen angels and cosmic shifts, this exact narrative already exists. It was written down by monks in Ethiopia 1,700 years ago. The Ascension of Isaiah describes a journey through the 7 heavens. It depicts Christ descending from the highest realm, gradually concealing his glory at each level so that the lower beings can even stand to look at him. He passes through dimensions, crossing boundaries between the divine and the human. Does that sound familiar? The Revelation. So, what are we left with? We have a Western tradition that chose 66 books and a gentle Jesus. We have an Ethiopian tradition that preserved 81 books and a cosmic, fiery Son of God. We have a 4th century church that decided texts like Enoch were too dangerous to keep around. And we have a 21st century filmmaker, Mel Gibson, spending $100 million to bring that cosmic vision to the screen. The question isn't just whether Mel Gibson read these texts, although it's hard to imagine he didn't, given how closely his vision aligns with them. The question is, if these suppressed texts are now coming back into the light, what else have we missed? History doesn't always run in a straight line. The victors don't always write the full story. Sometimes they just write the version they want you to remember. The Ethiopian Bible survived because monks in the middle of nowhere believed that their job wasn't just to copy words, but to preserve a vision of reality that the rest of the world was too busy burning to save. When you look at the image of Christ in the Garima Gospels, those ancient paintings with eyes like fire and hair like wool, you aren't looking at a Renaissance invention. You are looking at the oldest surviving portrait of how the early Christians actually saw him. The question now is for you. Are you satisfied with the 66-book version? Or are you ready to open your mind to the 81-book reality? Are you ready to see the image of a Christ who isn't just a man from history, but a cosmic presence that spans dimensions? If you want to keep exploring these mysteries, if you want to be the first to know about the secrets being uncovered in ancient manuscripts and the truth behind films like The Resurrection, then hit that subscribe button right now. One subscription could change everything for you. The story is not over. In fact, the part they tried to hide might just be beginning. Thanks for watching.